The original reaction of my family is I think they didn't really take it seriously, or they thought I'm just playing around, you know, and she'll grow out of it.
Most people think that I'm either some weird, flaky, new agey girl or something. And this one kid at school calls me Voodoo Girl.
When I first got involved, I had a few friends who, you know, were a little worried that maybe I was like getting involved with a cult or something like that.
Most people are taken aback when they hear the word witch, or when they find out that I'm a witch or a pagan.
If things continue exactly as they are, what's most likely to occur?
I don't hide it, but I really don't go around advertising the fact that I am.
People are afraid because they've grown up with distorted stereotypes, and every child sees Margaret Hamilton with the green face and the wart on her nose.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too.
And the evil monkeys trying to kill Toto. Many people are still unable to come out of the broom closet. I have chosen to do that. I will tell you that coming out of the broom closet has been the most liberating experience of my life.
I was raised Southern Baptist, the usual sort of ecstatic black churches with, you know, the tambourines and the organs and the choir and everything, and I never really connected with it. My sophomore year in high school, I had a mythology class, and we did an oral report. We had to do an oral report on any mythology-related topic, and I was sitting there, we were getting the assignment, and I was just like, witchcraft, I'll do it on witchcraft, and I have no idea it was like almost as if somebody put it in my mind to do it. I went to the library and I picked up a few books about Wicca, and actually I was kind of frightened at first because a lot of it made sense to me, more so than Christianity had. It was a lot about personal choice and freedom, and I really liked that. It's about connecting with nature, it's about recognizing the divine in every living thing, and most people don't seem to understand, teenagers and adults, they don't seem to understand that it's a religion. It taught me that you don't have to be stuffy in order to be spiritual or religious. I think my mother's still sort of in denial about it. I think in the back of her mind she's still hoping and I guess praying that I'll be the good little Christian girl that she wanted. But she knows, I told her in the last confrontation that we had that this was my path and I'm not a Christian and I don't think I'll ever be a Christian. So I think that she pretty much ignores it or she's in denial about it, but we don't talk about it.
One of my jokes is that, you know, witch, lawyer. The lawyer is the dark side, you know, right? Contrary to what people think, the lawyer is the dark side.
Mm-hmm. Good, so let's send him the materials. We'll send him everything that we've got in the students' rights file.
There are cases that I will not take. There's work I will not do. There are ways in which I choose not to live my life because they're too much of a contradiction of my spiritual values. And so it's a frame of reference that enables me to make choices and to make difficult choices. And it began for me in 1978. Events led me to the friendship of a witch, of a woman who was utterly fabulous, utterly normal, well-educated, great job, very hip, and the only thing was that she called herself a witch. She explained to me the origin of the distorted images, and as soon as I could see that behind the mask of the hideous hag is actually the face of the goddess, I was liberated from all those negative stereotypes, and I was able to lend myself to the study. And because nobody said, just believe me. And because they said, well, just try this technique. And the techniques worked. I began an amazing journey. And I've stayed with it for over 20 years.
I was raised Orthodox Jewish community, actually a Hasidic community. I was excommunicated when I was 15 years old, and it was a pretty painful time in my life. And I guess it was just sort of like a wandering Jew, you know, until I discovered the craft. What appeals to me about the religion of witchcraft is that there's a goddess as well as a god. So that means that women as well as men are made in the image of the divine, and it's really important to be able to feel that and understand that and celebrate that. What the goddess did for me was to help me feel the divine spark running within me. I was studying the Kabbalah, which is forbidden for women to study, and from that, mysticism was led to witchcraft. What I discovered in the Gemara is this long history of Jewish witches. So I consider myself Jewish at this point.
I have your overnight spot here.
When I first got involved, I was, I had like 8 or 9 silver rings and stuff like that. And I remember that I invited some friends over and they saw my altar. And they were freaked. As a matter of fact, they were so freaked that I think I never heard from them for months and months and months and months, years actually.
They want this silly little spot? It's not that silly. It's really hot out.
Well, I am a correspondent with National Public Radio.
How hot is it in Washington?
I interview people, I cut the tape, I write the scripts, and I actually have pieces that go on All Things Considered and Morning Edition and all the national news shows that National Public Radio does.
3, 2, 1.
I love having 2 lives. People at National Public Radio were very antsy about my participation in Wicca. And I finally evolved, I think, somewhat unconsciously, the notion that if I wasn't interviewed too much in the New York Times or the Washington Post, I could, be a reporter and then I could give lectures on witchcraft and no one would care. They wouldn't even know what was going on. And so what happened without me even realizing it was the sort of these 2 lives happening.
This is Justice Talking. I'm Margot Adler.
I was raised a Roman Catholic, but I was also told that I should believe in what I want to. And providing I wasn't bringing disgrace onto my name or into my home, I would be free to investigate whatever I would like. I think I would have been in a lot more trouble had the craft not been in my life. It certainly tempered me an awful lot because I was involved in it at a very early age, and it made me a lot more accountable. It also made me a lot more aware of the value of the life force in everything, in plants and animals and human beings, and it's made me a lot more tolerant of people.
What do you smell? It smells really familiar.
There's lavender in there, isn't it? I was a child. I was 10 years old. I would just go into the woods and sit there and really drink it and allow it to get dark around me.
All hail to the guardians of the East, spirits of wind, thought, intellect.
I was out there one evening and I thought I heard something, and I looked to my right, and there was a woman standing there. She said, well, I always come out to the woods around twilight to see the night fall, and she was also a witch.
Our craft's own goddess I invoke, and ancient ones of hill and mound. With fire aflame and drifting smoke, I dedicate the circled boughs.
She would meet me every evening, and it was really great. I had somebody to hang out with in the woods. So we would look at things, and she would teach me different plants. She would point to different plants and herbs and tell me what they were and what their, not only their magical properties, but their medicinal properties. And that's how the craft came into my life. I just met this wonderful person, and I just asked her recently, now that I'm in my mid-40s, I said, why did you even begin? What made you train this child, this smarmy little kid that you met in the woods? And she said, I saw a spark there. I saw a big sparkle. That I needed to find out what it was all about, and I just saw something in you that gave me a feeling that I needed to develop you as far as you were willing to go.
By all to thee that is 3 times 3, as I see, so shall it be.
Witchcraft or Wicca is a different religion. It's a contemporary religion, one that focuses on the individual, on individual expression. It's a nature-based religion in which there's a celebration of the cycle of nature. This is a religion that always is linking what's happening in nature to individuals' lives. Rituals are very central to witchcraft. You do a ritual, and in that ritual, you are raising magical energy. and you become connected to the divine.
And call upon the watchtowers of inspiration, of fire, of courage.
Most rituals require that people cast a circle. They then call in the 4 quarters, which are the 4 directions, north, east, south, and west.
I call upon the watchtowers of the west, of water.
So witches say, this was mundane space, this now is sacred space.
Witchcraft is a folk religion. Folk religious practices persist without the sanction of any institution or denomination. A lot of people are disenchanted with the growing sense of spectator status that they have in many religious worship services.
Water.
Smaller groups engage in these more inclusive sorts of practices, and so their participation is crucial to the event, to the gathering.
On my right hand stands Michael, on my left hand.
They come from the people, they are expressions of the people, and very often that, of course, places them at odds with the representatives of these larger religious traditions.
Witches participate in a series of holidays called Sabbats, which are the cycle of the year. They're at the beginning and height of each season.
I do say, hail unto thee, creatures who inhabit our green earth, and who inhabit this space. So mote it be, so mote it be.
May 1st is Beltane. This is a holiday that celebrates the beginning of spring, the renewal of life. Beltane focuses on fertility, fertility in nature, fertility in your mind, fertility in productivity and creativity. The masks are representatives of particular gods or goddesses.
Come, children, come tie your wishes to the pole.
We put all our hopes, we string them on our ribbons. And as we're winding it, we're trying to make our own hopes and dreams fruitful with the God and the Goddess's blessings.
We are weaving a spell. We are visualizing a prayer of what we want to come. We take it up to the heavens and we bring it down. We send it out to the universe and the universe will send it back to us.
We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return a drop of water flowing to the ocean.
Very often if you say, I'm a witch, you'll get the response of, I don't believe in that. Or you'll get the response of, do you have psychic power? And my answer was, probably just about as much as you do. A spiritual journey, interfaith perspectives. There is no supernatural, there's just the superpower of the natural. Let's say I do a ritual for a job interview. I think it's very important not to stress, not to emphasize form, but to emphasize the essence of what you want when you're asking for something. And I think that's true in whether you call it prayer, whether you call it a magical spell or an invocation, but you're asking for the essence. You're asking for the right work situation, the right love situation, or whatever. So let's say I'm at a job interview, and I draw to myself all that stuff that I need, and I dissolve and release all the stuff that I don't want with me. And I walk into that job interview really with much more of my highest self there than, let's say, I would otherwise. Witchcraft believes in the golden rule. It has a phrase that's sort of an odd phrase called, the threefold law, which is what you do comes back to you 3 times. The idea is that what you do, what you put out, comes back to you. And I think that's a very powerful idea, and that as long as you understand that, it doesn't, you can do what you will as long as you don't hurt other people. And that if you do hurt other people, that will come back to you and hurt yourself. I think that's, the very powerful Wiccan read.
I really liked the idea of a spirituality that says, hey, it's about you. Not that it's all about you, but ultimately it begins and ends inside yourself. You can't look to any sort of deity for salvation. You can't look to any deity for condemnation. It's all within yourself.
I conjure thee, O circle of power. In my will and word do I conjure thee. So mote it be.
Right now, I'm mainly practicing solitary. The rituals that I do really aren't that involved. I'll light a candle, I'll say a prayer. A lot of it is meditation, sort of going inward. I guess sort of similar to what a Buddhist or a Hindu might practice.
Lady Athena, guardian and protector, imbue this candle with your essence. Let it guide Peter on his trip here. May no harm come to him.
Sometimes a ritual can just be walking out and looking at the moon and the sky and just muttering a prayer of thanks or something, or saying grace before a meal.
Magic is mental. As you see your world, it will become. You just have to see it strongly enough. Sometimes we need props. There's candles, there's wands, there's all kinds of stuff. But in the end, it's your own mind. It's your own will. Magic is definitely the manifestation of your will, using every tool that we have. And every tool that we have as a human being, not only as a witch, even people who have never been trained in witchcraft have the ability to focus and create whatever they want in their life. It's by sheer concentration and focus that magic manifests.
A spell is actually doing a magical working to in some way change something. The way in which you do this is you put on special clothing, you have on special jewelry, you light candles, you meditate. This puts you into another state of being.
Jupiter is the planet and god for expansion, joviality. Jupiter's a pretty strong thing because you have long-reaching plans.
A very common metaphor that's used is the world is a web. It's a series of knots. And you can untie them and tie them in a slightly different way, and hence change what's happening in the world. But it takes a lot of energy to do that. Now, some knots are small knots. Others are complex knots, and it takes much more energy.
I'm very proud to say that I finally got my doctorate in botanical biochemistry, which is working with natural medicines.
What is that?
What I do is I work with natural compounds for people with AIDS and HIV infection, trying to use products of the earth or substances of the earth as part of a plan toward wellness without using pharmaceuticals. Here we go, right back to paganism and witchcraft. We are all part of the earth. We can use the earth to heal ourselves.
By all to thee, that's 3 times 3, as I shall will, so mote it be.
The first recipe is for money drawing incense that can also be used as a floor wash, an incense, a bath, and a dessert topping. And I got the recipe in New Orleans from a madam. Then you start with a piece of currency and you deface it. You tear it into tiny little pieces. And while you're doing it, you concentrate on releasing the value of the bill. I wish it were 100. And having it returned to you.
So you're just releasing all that money energy. You feel the power coming up through your feet, through your whole body, into your fingertips, and you deliberately tear George into pieces. You're putting all the magic that this country put into developing their paper currency into your product. Get it there. For the most part, it's about currency and protection. I will be protecting my business and keeping it invisible to the people that it shouldn't be available to. Throw in a little gold. And just start mashing it. Let it soak for a little while. And get it as close to a paste as you can. You'll see it, you can see it turning green. All the oil is picking out the ink. And you start to mix it all together. You just burn it all, and it fills the atmosphere with that energy. It will enhance business, it'll bring money back into your business, and it will keep all the wrong people away from it. Isn't that beautiful?
The thing I actually like is using food products. If you use foods, then you can put the energy into yourself internally. Things that the ancients used were actually things that they had simply right at hand. So it's understanding magically what we can use, what we have right on hand. And this tradition is also known as kitchen witchery. Oh. A lot of things are, very valid substitutes. You don't need eye of newt, you can use fig Newtons, essentially.
Spices.
There's an herb called deer's tongue. What it is wild vanilla leaf or wild vanilla grass. They call it deer's tongue or dog's tongue because the animals like to eat it, like to munch on it. This never was, the tongue of any kind of an animal. It's valid to substitute a vanilla bean or even vanilla extract, pure vanilla extract for deer's tongue.
Don't use the dog's tongue. Please don't.
Every vegetable, every plant has an astrological ruler, a zodiac sign and a planetary ruler. So if you understand that, you know how to combine things, like tomatoes and basil. It's putting Venus and Mars together, so it's very sexy. It's a love spell, essentially. What I find is that people really want quick fixes. Here we have our orange peel, and it's not always possible magically, but sometimes it is. So what I'm going to do is make what we call a little love pouch. And here we have our mint. We're just going to put some dried herbs in there. So you put this dried orange peel and mint leaf in a little tin foil pouch. And if you put it inside the bra for a woman, or inside the inside breast pocket for a man, this would attract more of love from the heart. But you can also wear it inside the pants to attract something more lustful. And you can also, you can make two pouches and wear one here and wear one here. Or you can switch it in the middle of the night, Oh, he's coming on too strong, I better move it up here. Whatever you want. They work. They definitely work.
You have to juggle the demands of a high-functioning life in the normal world with the calling of the sacred, which summons you to dance beneath the moon all night. And it's hard to do that if you have to be up at 8 o'clock and, be sharp. But you learn how to balance. You learn how to do that. And if you can't do it every full moon, then you try to do it at least on the full moons that are on the weekend.
Tonight's circle is going to be about illumination, about bringing the light that is within all of us, which is divine, out into the world. East and south, and west and north. Marvelous. The most important thing about the small size of a circle is the opportunity for people to participate. And that's key. That's at the core of everything that we do, because what this is all about are the practices.
Hand to hand, I cast this circle. Hand to hand, I cast this circle.
Hand to hand, I cast this circle.
Hand to hand.
I teach the practices, and people use the practices, and through that they experience the sacred.
Hand to hand and heart to heart, our circle is cast, and we remember where we are and why we are here.
Circles are magic, and they're magic because we come together in them. And we join our energies, and you can feel it. It's remarkable. And together, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
We call to the spirits of the East, spirits of air, spirits of thoughts and inspiration and new beginnings.
I call to the spirits of the South, fire and flame, salamander, snake, spark of life, bid you hail and welcome.
Hail and welcome.
I light this candle from the flame within my heart and the flame upon our altar. At the center, where heaven and earth meet, and I light it to bring forth the light of love into the world.
I lit this candle for compassion, and I hope that that flame will continue to burn as brightly as ever.
I light this candle from my heart to keep bright the light of love and honesty and truth, to light the way for others.
I light this candle to bring peace into the world.
So we've cast a circle of light, and we've expressed the very best of our humanity, and that's where our divinity dwells. So, let's raise some energy with the chant.
We are a circle within a circle, with no beginning and never ending, and never ending. Flowing to the ocean, we all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain. Flowing to the ocean.
People who study religion talk about ritual as being important for the formation of community. It's a connection with previous generations who engaged in the same sort of ritual.
Hail and welcome to ye, guardians of the East, ye powers of air and of the mind. We request that you attend our circle and assist us in our rites. We bid you hail and welcome.
Hail and welcome.
It provides a kind of boundary in some ways. And even within a movement that professes to transcend boundaries or to place itself outside of traditional boundaries, what's striking is that in witchcraft practices, they have their own set of ritual.
Hail and welcome to ye, Hecate. Attend our circle and assist us in our rites.
Witchcraft serves as a reminder about the enchantment of the world. It asserts, in effect, that there is this larger realm that can be tapped into in one way or another.
Air I am, fire I am, water, earth, and spirit I am. Air I am, fire I am.
And the emphasis on this religion is on an ecstatic experience with the divine.
By the thinning Aquarian moon, may the bane that once was spoken through our powers now be broken.
Rituals are a way of getting in to that ecstatic experience, and they're a way of celebrating that ecstatic experience.
Free the witches whose souls are entwined in the curse. Free the curse. Break the curse. Once and for all, mighty Hecate, mighty Hermes, break the curse. Air turns, fire burns, water carries, earth buries. As the magic spell is spoken, may your powers now be broken.
The religion is growing, and what draws them in is celebration of the divine and the acceptance of diversity in nature and in people, and the spells of self-transformation.
The craft certainly does keep me centered. It keeps me responsible, it keeps me accountable, and it just more or less forces me to do things for myself.
Have you ever stayed in a job too long?
Yes.
Okay, remember that.
It actually is my life. It's become my life. The God and the Goddess are in all of us, and if we are truly like the God and the Goddess, then we can do an awful lot of things ourselves. Many people will go to a priest, a rabbi, or a minister. I don't have to go to a priest to ask God. I have a direct line. I got rid of the middleman.
The way I see it is my spells, it's like I'm giving you the car and, you know, the keys. But you have to turn the ignition. You have to put your foot on the pedal, you know, the gas. I'm even giving you a map, you know, of how to get you going. But, you know, you've got to steer and you've got to pay attention and you've got to do the driving. And you've got to use your magical energy or your power, essentially, to do that driving. I can't do it for you. The thing that moved me the most was a woman wrote me a letter somewhere in Canada, in boondocks in Canada. She said, I always knew I was a witch, but I could never find anywhere to buy these supplies that you need to do spells. And then I found your book, and now I'm working all these spells, and they're working for me, and I really feel like I'm a witch. You know, and to me, it wasn't even so much that like the spells were working, but that she felt like she was able to do this work that she wanted to do. Gave her a way to do it. And it's just incredible. I mean, I never imagined that I'd be able to move somebody in that way, change their life in that way, and it's a blessing, you know, to be able to do that.
I started out with a lot of the accoutrements. You know, as you get more into Wicca, you realize that it's all in your head, and that all these props are fun, but they really don't mean anything, because what's really going on is the relationship with spirit or within your head. I'm not raising my son really anything. I'm taking him to rituals, I'm taking him to festivals a couple of times a year, but I'm not really bringing him up in a religious way.
That's Alex.
And I'll allow him to choose for himself.
When my mother and my sister found all my books, they said, what are you doing? This is satanic, this is evil, I don't want this in my house. And I said, you know something, you can take away the books, you can take away the candles, you can take away all of that stuff, but it's in my heart and it's in my mind, and you can't come in there, you can't take that away from me, and I'm not going to be who you want me to be. I'm sorry, that's just not myself. There are teenagers who are out there looking and searching and seeking. We're not all shallow mall rats. There are people my age who are serious about spiritual things and who are looking for deeper answers to their questions.
One of the questions I've gotten is, oh, do you use your magic, you know, to help you as a lawyer? I guess they think, you know, that I twitch my nose and I win a case. And then you have to explain to them, I don't do my spells to try to control the world. You know, I might do a spell for justice. I might do a spell to empower myself to be more eloquent or persuasive in my argumentation. But I rarely even do that these days, because my spell is my life. My life is my magic. The world is full of magic. It is so possible for us. It is right there. It is literally at our fingertips. But people have not learned how to reach out and take hold of it. And the techniques to reach out and take hold are ancient, and they're simple, and they work.
Pelea, Yemaya, Aphrodite. I'm doing a ritual for the ocean goddess to celebrate the bounty of the sea. Goddess of the sea. I'm doing this ritual sky-clad. The witch's word for nude is a way to be completely connected with the elements, 4 elements and nothing in between. To be a practicing witch, to me, means that you have a certain awareness of the patterns and the rhythms of the earth and the seasons, and that you try to incorporate that into your life. And that you have an awareness of the divine element moving through you and moving through everything around you. As the sword is to the god, so the chalice is to the goddess. And conjoined, they bring blessedness. So mote it be. I would like people to really know, like the minute they hear the word witchcraft, that they would think or see the goddess. If people could hear that word and get some beautiful, powerful image of the goddess. That's what I would want.
We view spirituality in general as a sort of mountain. The divine is on the top of that mountain, and there are different trails, and some are hard, some are easy, but all the trails lead to the summit of the mountain.
There are many pathways to the truth, and mine is only one. And that's good. That the world is a richer, more exciting, deeper, more interesting place because we have many paths to the truth.
For many people, it's something they can use to get something that they want. It means spells, and casting spells, and hexes, and things like that. It's great, but for witches, I think it's our form of prayer.
By understanding the craft and by incorporating it into my life and by being respectful of it, I can create a lot of my own future.
People ask me who's the real witch in The Wizard of Oz, and I always answer that it's Dorothy. It's actually Dorothy. Because the good witch and the bad witch are both stereotypes. The real witch is Dorothy, because she's the one making the journey on the spiral path. And she's the one who ultimately discovers that the power has been within her all along, and that there's no place like home.